wisdom, student enrollment. That's what the class of God students enroll in. Supreme wisdom, I study it hard. The study of myself is the study of God. Supreme wisdom, write your letter, get your X. Supreme wisdom, that's what you'll be getting next. Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.
So now, when we go to the Supreme Wisdom lessons, in Lost Law Muslim lesson number 1, question number 30, it asks, tell us what and how the devil is made. So what?
Lesson number 2.
Lesson number 2, I said 1? Mm-hmm. Lesson number 2. What's on the thing is correct. I'm not correct. So, but if I make a mistake, please correct me. Thank you very much. So now, before we start this grafting process, the black man produces 4 colors. When Yacob looked in a microscope, he saw 2 germs, and then we looked at just the definition of those colors, and really, if he saw those 2 germs, there were 4 colors that he saw that was inside the black man. So, question number 30 asks, tell us what and how the devil is made. So now we're getting to the meat of this lesson, because now we're actually getting to that grafting process. So in the Supreme Wisdom it says, the devil is made from the original people by grafting, and in parentheses it says by separating the germs. There's their word separate again. So I was going to put the definition, the scientific definition as it goes for grafting in here, but the devil says when you graft something, they say you actually add 2. So you put 2 things together, but the message is very specific what he means when he says grafting. Mm-hmm. So in his answer, he said grafting is actually a separating process. Keep that in mind. And it says, in the black man, there's these 2 germs, one a black germ and one a brown germ. Yacob, with his law on birth control, separated the brown germ from the black germ and grafted it into white by destroying the black germ. After following the process for 600 years, the germ became white and weak and was no more original. Also, by thinning the original blood, it became weak and wicked, and it is no more the same. Thus, this is the way Yacob made the devil. So that's our grafting process tied up right there. The messenger goes in detail, extensive detail, in other questions and answers, and he also goes in detail in the message to the black man, but they are the same, they're the same answers, just in different forms. And I chose this one because it dealt with the part that I wanted to deal with, which is the actual physical way that he grafted this race of devils. So in here, we say that, again, 2 germs, and 2 germs, one is brown, one is black. And then it says Yacob used a law of birth control. So again, this is telling you the separation process has to do with the science of mating, okay? Because you say, oh, well, he was in the laboratory, he was under a microscope. Well, why didn't he just splice it like they do in lab? Why didn't he just use a laser? Because that's not the way he did his grafting process. He actually grafted this man by mating people together. And that's why he had a law of birth control, because there were people that were being conceived and born, okay? And also it says that he separated the brown from the black and grafted it into white by destroying the black germ. Then it says after following process for 600 years, the germ became white and weak. Keep that phrase in your mind, white and weak. Weak and white are synonymous, we got it? All right. And then it says also by thinning the original blood became weak and wicked and was no more the same. So if something started off as black and it turned white, they're no longer the same. Because black and white, as we saw in the previous slides, what? Were opposite. The opposite of white, the opposite of black. So how do you know when you become unalike? How do you know when you become something different? Because you become the opposite of what you are. So if he started off with black, he knew he reached the process when he made a man that was white. Yes, ma'am?
And just thinking about what you're saying,
he was the founder of the law of opposites attract.
Yes, ma'am. Keep in mind all this stuff. That's why I wanted you all to keep notes, because that word founder is very important too when you're dealing with genetics. I came across that as well. So even that language of founder is interesting. And I have that at the end of the presentation where I bring in some of the actual scientific researchers and proof that this is what they said. So they can't backtrack. You know, when we come to the table, coming hard like this, teaching our people the truth about them, because they already went out there and said it and proved it for us. Okay? But yes, ma'am. That's all you want to say?
That's it.
But yes, so they became.
I'll just say this one thing, that, you know, coming from a science background, I'm trying to think in my mind, because you have pigment, and then you have light spectrum. And I'm trying to think in my mind how, I'm assuming we're dealing with pigment. How
When we're dealing, you see this color? This is paint. Paint is pigment.
Right. So I'm thinking how you can make something, you know, I mean, I guess I'll follow along with it, but make it no longer black.
See, now that's what I wanted somebody to pick up.
Drop of black, it changes.
But that's what I wanted you all to pick up. And you said, just like you said, when you have a drop of black, it no longer is white, right?
Right.
When you have this paper, right? I have this paper, I have black letters printed on white paper. Because once I put that coloring on this white paper, it's no longer white. It's easy to overlay anything over that color because it doesn't have the ability to be expressed if a more dominant color is on top of it. You raise your hand? But again, your question is, how do you know? Because I asked myself that, why is black, if white came out of black, why is white not considered a part of the original family if it came from the original family? And part of that I answered in the color sense is because if you know what black is, and you know the opposite of black, when you reach something that is totally opposite of black, and again, in the beginning there were two germs. And in that germ you had black, brown, and in brown you had red and yellow. It didn't have white in the germ. Think about it. If the two germs that were there were black and brown, and we already said that brown is red and yellow, that means that in the beginning, you had those four colors. White was not present. The black had to be destroyed for the white to become present. If that partially answers your question, but I'll get to answering that very succinctly when we start getting into these genetics. But if you think about it, black and brown was in the beginning. Brown includes red and yellow. So in the beginning, you had black, brown, red, and yellow. No white, but you had to destroy the black in order for the white to come about. So, moving on, going back to here, so we have a grafting process, two germs, a long birth control, and it's a separation process, right? I would like to bring you to another scientist. And this man is named Gregor Mendel. And for those of you who remember your middle school science, maybe even elementary science, you heard about this man, Gregor Mendel, who through his, who's considered by many to be another father of modern genetics. Okay? See how these white people just claim all these names, talk about they're the father of this, the father of that. The message already said that Yacob was the founder of a lot of this stuff that they're doing right now. But you know what? Yacob is their father, so I guess they're just saying that if he's my father, he's mine. So, but this is actually, again, this is how Yacob grafted his devil. Pay attention to the language. So this is Gregor Mendel, and he lived in the 1800s, 1860s. It says, well, but this is, he lived during the 1800s, but in the 1860s, an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel introduced a new theory of inheritance based on his experimental work with pea plants. Okay? So this man was doing scientific experiments with plants. And it says, based on this, it says, Gregor introduced a new theory of inheritance based on, it says, Gregor Mendel, through his work on pea plants, discovered the fundamental laws of inheritance. And in this case, when we talk about inheritance, we talk about genetic inheritance. Because this man was a geneticist. The man before us was an anthropologist. This man is a geneticist. So he actually deals with DNA and genes. And so he discovered this. It says he deduced that genes come in pairs and are inherited as distinct units, one from each parent. It says Mendel tracked the segregation. I underlined that. Again, here's that word again. Segregation. What does segregation mean?
Separate.
Separation, right?
Yeah.
When in the past, right, when black people were living over here and white people over there, we call that what? Segregation. So segregation, again, we're dealing with separation. So it says that Mendel tracked the segregation of parental genes and their appearance in the offspring as dominant or recessive traits. He recognized that the mathematical patterns of inheritance from one generation to the next. So this man was able to track the traits, or like kind of the characteristics of these different plants when he cross-blended, when he got them to make and produce offspring. So he was able to predict the possibility of them producing an offspring with certain traits. Okay? So so what he did is he had two parents and he was able to look at the offspring and see what was inside of the two parents. Right? So, Mendel's laws can be stated as follows. If you want to understand Mendel's his theory of genetics and what he brought to the table, it can be expressed as these simple three laws. So the first one is the law of, yes ma'am?
I just wanted to, for the sake of Brother David, who's new to the class, that if you have questions, you can ask questions
Yes.
to the class.
Please ask questions.
I know she went fast.
I know I'm going fast because I started 15 minutes late. It's my fault. I was trying to print out, because you know me, I like giving you all things to do because I don't like to just sit here and talk. I want you to show me that you get it. So, going back to Mendel. So he said he can predict what the children would look like, their physical traits based off of the parents and the probability of it. And so to express that, he made three laws. And his first law is the law of segregation. Interesting to know. And it says the law of segregation, it states that each inheriting trait is defined by a gene pair. We know when we're dealing with a pair, we're dealing with two, right?
Right.
So that means that whenever you get to one trait, one gene in you, that you get one from your mother and one from your father. So everything that makes you up comes in pairs. One from your mother and one from your father. I didn't put this in here because it was going to be too hard to explain because it got too scientific. But let me tell you the difference why Mendel is so important, is considered the father of genetics. It's because before Mendel, they claimed that people thought that you were a perfect mix between your parents. So they were saying that you, like, just like a coffee, put a little cream in your coffee, you mix it and it just swirls and it comes out to something in between. Mendel said that that's not how genetics work. He said that for each trait that makes you, you either choose to express your father or choose to express your mother. I mean, yes, you're going to choose, so you're only going to choose to express one of them, okay? So it's saying that, say for instance, like your eyes, right? Mendel's saying that your eye is not going to be a blend between your mother's eye and your father's eye, and it comes out into a shape in between. He said you're going to either have your mother's eye or your father's eye. And then when it comes to your lips, you're going to have either your mother's lips or your father's lips. It's not going to be a shape that's a mix in between. You're going to either have his or hers. So have you ever heard somebody that's like, well, that child, she has her mother's eyes, but that's her father's. This right here is all her father, right? You look like your father from here down. You right, but you never say you look like a mix between your mother. No, it's like either one or the other. That's me oversimplifying, because there are many traits that come together to make you. But what he suggested is that out of a pair of traits, you're going to either be one or the other, and that's how we come together instead of just kind of swirling. So he says parental genes are randomly separated to the sex cells so that the sex cells contain only one gene of the pair. Offspring therefore inherit one genetic allele from each parent when sex cells unite in fertilization. Okay? So they inherit only one gene from each parent, one of the alleles from that gene. And we're going to explain this language. The second law is the law of independent assortment. It says genes for different traits are sorted separately from one another so that the inheritance of one trait is not dependent on the inheritance of another. So what they're saying is that, what I just explained, is that you're not going to get it all from one. It's going to randomly choose. If you choose your mother's mouth, your father's eyes, it's going to randomly choose. It's not like you're going to look like either a complete copy of your mother or a complete copy of you, but the different parts of you are going to be from either your mother or your father. And then the last one is the law of dominance. And the law of dominance says an organism with alternate forms of a gene will express the form that is dominant. Okay? So they're saying with the two genes that you get from your parents, now how does your body choose which one to express? And so what he suggested is that your body, or what we see, or what's expressed in your genetics, is going to be the one that's stronger. So that means that when it came down to why you have your mother's nose, it's because your mother's nose is stronger. When it comes down to why you have your father's hands, it's because your father's hands, the gene that coded for that, was stronger in your father than it was in your mother. Okay? And that's how he explained how we make up our genetics and how we inherit genetics from our parents. So different genes, different traits, different things like that, they come randomly because of the separation that happens when you're making it in the different sex cells, and then it's going to choose which one is expressed based upon which one is stronger or weaker.
Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.